Welcome to the Burgundy Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, having to deal with my scratchy throat from yesterday's game. This is my main man, Reggie. What's going on,
What's going on, Kenny?
man? You know, I'm going to sound today. I'm going to sound somewhere between a
Puberty.
adolescent teenager or a wrestler. You know, a wrestler talking some. You know, when I come into the ring, it's I don't know. Or my voice is gone, man. I don't know why.
It is gone, and mine was gone for about 24 hours, but it's maybe less, but it started to come back. And I was teasing you that yours is still more in bad shape because you didn't get a lot of practice in. See, I'm always yelling. You don't yell enough, so
that's just it. I was so much more excited.
Oh, is that what it was?
There was nobody at the stadium more excited than me. Right? Right?
I don't know. We had about 40,000 of our friends there that might disagree with you on that, but
I had to
let's
grab Reggie
first
and hug, give him a hug and celebrating and high fiving and I one time Reggie looked at me like, "Hold on, man, get control of yourself." I couldn't in the moment.
Yeah, you gotta get out of control there for a minute, man. I had to calm you down.
I was.
But what shouldn't get lost in all the pandemonium here, Ken, is today's Victory Monday, right? You got to recognize this is Victory Monday, so I need to hear the tunes, man. Come on, turn them up.
Oh, okay, I got you. We got it. And you know what? They always play this on the last touchdown. I couldn't tell you. They play it every touchdown, right? I couldn't tell you if they played that or not because there was no way you were going to hear that song at the stadium.
No one cared.
The game yesterday.
No one cared. I bet the band didn't even play it.
Oh, they were jumping, going berserko.
Yeah, the band was probably just as excited as everybody else, so they forgot to play it.
Yeah, and then, I'm just going to touch on it for a little bit because we don't need to talk about it much. But it was a double victory Monday because, it was a Commanders win and a Cowboy loss.
Cowboy.
That's right. So,
right,
as a fan, those are the two things you wish for every single weekend.
Those are facts. Those are facts. I got to give that to you, man. So this is a wonderful Victory Monday, as we talked about. Ken, we're 6-2. Right?
Say it again.
We won 4 games. We won 4 games last year, and right now, through 8 games, halfway through the season, we're 6-2. We're 6-2.
It feels good. It feels good.
It's wonderful.
And we would have lost 5-3. Still would have been a good record, but it's nothing like 6-2.
Exactly. And so we were walking back, and for anyone that's ever been to the stadium and taken the metro, we're walking back to the metro and having a conversation with my buddy Ken. And I'm just talking, and I mentioned the fact that we're 6-2. And not really taunting anyone. I'm just having a conversation with my buddy. And walk past this guy. This guy looks at me. Okay. And as I got a few steps in front of him, I hear him telling his girlfriend, this guy's talking about they're 6-2. Well, me being me, I'm riding a high. I got some adrenaline going. I turn around. I told him, I said, I did, because we are 6-2. He's like, well, but they don't give our regular. I don't care. We're still 6-2. Well, it turns out he's a Bears fan. So he's a little salty. And Ken decides to tell him, well, being 6-2 is a lot better than 4-3. Now we're walking back with the masses, and he's outnumbered. So then some other Commander fans hear it, and then they started piling on. Man, it was almost as if, speaking from a wrestling standpoint, it was like we tag team, because it's like we high-fived the guy, and then they picked up where we left off, because he's running his mouth about us, about me talking about being 6-2, which is all facts, by the way.
Correct.
But he's being salty. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
Right.
That we sent them to 4-3.
Yes, exactly. It's not my fault that your guy here running around on the field instead of with his head in the game, tips the ball and we catch it. It's not my fault. And so, then he kind of start popping off and everything. And we let him know, hey, listen, dog, you need to take that somewhere else, man. We're 6-2, and we're not going to apologize for it. Now, going
And
back to where you came from.
we're riding high. We're on a magic carpet, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's not a long walk, but it's not a short walk to the metro, right?
It's a,
It
it's
can
a,
take
it's
some
a
time.
mile.
Man,
Come on, man.
it was like I was floating the whole way there. You know,
Well,
I
if you've never been and taken the metro, let me help you. Ken is underselling this a little bit. He says it's not a long walk; it's a mile. Depending on your physical condition, a mile is a long way.
it's a long way when you lose.
Well, it's true too.
It's a lot shorter when you win, baby. It's a lot shorter when you win.
So, but anyway, man. Anyway, we are 6-2, man, and I'm not gonna make no apologies for it because we could have easily lost that game. And listen, and if we were 2-6, people would be talking about that too. So I'm not gonna apologize one bit.
Well,
So Chicago fan, you take that, bro.
and we'll get to the game, go more depth into the game. But just kind of to set the scene of getting to the game, Reggie and I flew in on Saturday evening, got to the hotel, got up, and there's always a group of fans in the red zone. Maybe I shouldn't say where they are. Sorry, it's out there now. But red zone's a big zone, right? But there's a group of people in the red zone who always welcome us when we come in. It's like 4 or 5 mini groups that all turn into one group.
Correct.
And they all help each other. They all promote each other if they have something that they're promoting. They're all feeding each other, giving each other drinks, whatever it is. It's a Commander Burgundy Gold Brotherhood in that area.
Absolutely.
And
And
so we got to
sisterhood.
go to that area.
Don't forget the ladies that are out there. It's the brothers and sisterhood out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we went out there and got to see people that, we don't go to every single game. We've been to a few games this year. Last year we went to 1 or 2 games. Reggie, sometimes when you went to Atlanta, some of the people that you saw there,
Correct.
we're in the circle with these group of people. So it's nice to come along and cross paths with them.
Absolutely. So we get to see some familiar faces and stuff. And of course, as Ken pointed out, they're very welcoming. And but a big part of that would be Chuck and Brandy, who is in charge of the along with Sheik over at the command corner. And man, you're not wanting for anything. If you're thirsty, they got you covered. And then of course, our guy Chef Eddie, who has become a friend of ours. And man, all these folks with great hospitality. And Eddie tends to attempt to make his tailgate meal that is a signature of the opposing team. And in this case, we're playing the Bears. So he had put together what they call a Chicago dog. And so he had ordered everything that from Chicago, from the hot dogs to the relish to the seasoning. I guess what part of what makes it is the seeds on the buns and then they have pickle spears and tomatoes. And let me tell you, for my guy Eddie, and based on the people who like Chicago dogs,
Right.
they gave him an A+. But your boy, I'm not putting no pickles, no tomatoes. They only put mustard. I'm a ketchup guy. They only put mustard. They put onion, relish, and it was all this other stuff. And for the Chicago Bears fans that stopped through and picked up one, and people who liked it, they raved about it because Eddie's a great cook, and I'm sure it was good. But I said, Eddie, hold all that. Just give me the bread, the hot dog meat, and give me some mustard, and I was on my way.
And that's exactly what I had. I had it with just mustard,
I couldn't put a pickle spear and tomato and all this other stuff on it. But nonetheless, the point is the hospitality. He was great, along with the rest of the folks out there, man, and all the other familiar faces that we that we got to see. I don't want to start naming people and forget some names. And so the crew, they all know who they are, the 405 crew and everybody that's out there, man. So once again, we appreciate you guys for welcoming us out there as we come into town for the game. So,
and there were even a couple Chicago fans that were friends of Commander fans, and they were very good. They were very good and about everything, leading up to the game and festive. So it was a good atmosphere. It was a real good atmosphere.
Yep. The weather was good. Your boy don't do the cold. The game was supposed to be about 60 degrees, so we had to make sure we was geared up with the proper gear.
Oh yeah,
to make sure.
I knew it was going to, during the game it was going to get below 60, into the upper 50s potentially. So I had some hand warmers ready for him. They were in my pocket. I was ready to pull them out and say, here. I don't want you sitting over there shivering.
Well, knowing that I knew he was going to come back and talk about me on this podcast, my hands could have felt like ice bricks. I was not going to accept hand warmers at no point in time. Even if I say I can't feel my fingers, you want these hand warmers? No, because you're not going to come back on here and talk about me needing hand warmers out there. But
it's easy for him to say that now, ladies and gentlemen. But we know, Reggie. Yeah, man, give me them hand warmers.
Hey,
just don't tell nobody. Just don't tell nobody.
They were not needed. They were not needed.
They were not needed. They were not.
They were not needed.
But it was getting close. It was getting close. We went into the after tailgating for really a couple hours. We ended up going into the stadium early and taking on some of the festivities that were going on there. And if you've been listening to us for a while, we've had beat reporter Candy Waller on with us 2 different times. Good insight, great friend of the show. And so we met up with her, and while we're sitting there talking to her for a few minutes, other
friends of hers,
that
are
beat reporters, Lou Holder and Donna Hopkins joined, and the 5 of us sat there and just
chopped it up, man.
Just chopped it up about the team and what's going on and what we like, what we don't like for probably 10 or 15 minutes. It was a nice little thing. And if you have you posted it on Twitter, the picture?
No, I've not posted a picture yet. I'll be posting
that'll be out there. We've been busy traveling and posting some other pictures, but that picture will be up within the next 24 hours.
Yeah. And what's really cool about these folks is obviously if you listen to any of the pre and post game pressers with Dan Quinn during the week and those types of things, even with the players, these folks are in these rooms asking the questions that we hear the coaches provide. And so again, we talk about how social media has kind of made this kind of a small world, and for us to be able to meet and interact with these folks that in normal cases we would never be able to do so. And so they were great, man. It's great to meet those people. We communicate with some of them on social media.
Yep.
And so for us to get a chance to put a face with the name and all of that good stuff, man, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they get to ask the players and the coaches the questions that we all would like to ask them.
Yeah, and we sat there and was having conversation.
Absolutely.
And not that we're journalists or anything, but it was all off the record, and they were sitting there giving their personal opinions about some things. We asked them some questions, and it was just really cool, really cool experience to have with those folks, man.
Absolutely. And then the game started, Reg.
What game? Do you mean the Miracle in Maryland?
That's what I'm calling it. Is that what they're calling it now?
That's what I'm calling it.
Hey, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. It was there was a point in the game, and we'll kind of go through it because obviously when you think about this game, you don't think about the first 49 minutes and 45 seconds. I'm sorry, 59 minutes and
almost 40 seconds.
Really, yeah. 40 seconds, I'll just say. But leading up to that point, it was very reminiscent of the Giants game.
Yes, sir.
we were moving the ball. We were moving the ball and settling for 3 points. Got in the red zone. I say red zone. We got in within the 4 to 6 yard line, 4 to 7 yard line a couple times, and just penalties or just bad plays or whatever. All of a sudden, just like, what are we doing here, right? You accepted the first one. Go down there, march right back down the second time. Same thing again. You're like, come on, guys, march down the third time. I don't think we had punted at this point for the third time, and another field goal. And I said at the time, if one of those first three, definitely the first four, but if one of those first three would have been a touchdown, and now you're up 13 instead of 9-0, it changes the game.
Look, man. Look, Washington was dominating the game.
Absolutely.
Right. But we had nothing to show for it. And of course, we were talking about it and stuff, and was getting a little frustrated the fact that here we are doing this, and all it takes is one score by Chicago, and they're back in this game. Whereas there was 3 opportunities, we get down, we have 9 points. And at least 2 of the 3, all 3 were in the red zone, and at least 2 of those was with less than 10 yards to go.
Correct.
And yet here we're getting field goals out of the situation here, and you could tell a one touchdown, if you convert one of those touchdowns, 2 of those touchdowns, the way Chicago was playing, it was going to be enough to put the game away. And then all of a sudden Chicago scores, and all of a sudden you could see the energy on their side of the field.
Right.
You can see that they're like, okay, because we've not played well this entire game, and now we finally score, and we still have a chance to come back and stop these guys and win this game. So you could see a little extra effort and energy on their sidelines. But it was frustrating, and so we're sitting here watching, and we're talking about the game, and at no point did I feel like we were going to lose, but I was getting frustrated and a little bit nervous from the standpoint of where is this gonna go? Because this was a little bit reminiscent of Washington of old, right? And you just can't get it done, and you're gonna let this team stick around long enough, and then you're gonna lose in the end. And so we're sitting here watching it, and I had mentioned during the game that I understand that Jaden was healthy enough to play, but he did not look 100%. And he was dirting a lot of the balls. And what I mean by that is a lot of his throws were coming up short to the receiver. Receivers aren't having to reach high. It wasn't hitting them in the numbers. It was a lot of having to scoop to the ground to get it, or he was shorting the ball where it was skipping in front of the receivers and stuff. And again, he was healthy enough to play, but he seemed to not be 100%. And to me, it was evident. You could see it. It was very evident during the play and during the game. And I was getting a little bit concerned because as the sun went down, it got a little colder out there. And if anybody saw Jaden post game, even a guy like myself who don't like the cold had to laugh a little bit that he had on one of those masks. I'm like, it was cool out there, Jaden. I don't know if it's cold enough for my man to be wearing a ski mask the way he had on out there.
Right.
And but I mean, because people have talked about that in his career, his college career, playing at LSU and Arizona State, he played only one cold weather game. And he's a California kid. So it's just kind of funny to see him with the thingy under his under his mask. But nonetheless, though, I don't know if that had something to do with it. And then, of course, he took a couple of hits as well, and but he looked a little bit different on his throws and a little bit of the velocity, at least watching it live. So
and then to kind of to frame some of that dominance that we had, I'll just go over a few of the numbers here. Caleb Williams, you start putting pressure on him. If he cannot run, he is not comfortable at all. Right. He gets happy feet. He's looking left, looking right, and he's looking for an exit. He's not looking to necessarily make a pass. Now, once he rolls and he clears that initial pressure, then
He's
his
dangerous.
eyes open up and he can do it with his legs or with his arm. But keeping him in the pocket, pocket-ish, he is not comfortable with pressure. I don't know if he is going to, with experience, is going to do better at that. But when he rolls out and the play breaks down, that's when he's special, right? But he was 10 for 24. 10 for 24. That's 42% completion rate, right?
He missed
For,
wide open. He missed some wide
he,
open throws, man.
yes, he missed. If he would have played a good game and was an accurate, again, not only is he not comfortable, but he's not an accurate passer, right? Because he had guys that were open that he was just zinging them over. At one point, DJ Moore walked off the field. He was hot. I don't know if they showed him on TV, but he was not happy with what was going on and the passes that he was getting, and not being involved, not just because the pass wasn't thrown to him, but when it was thrown to him, there's no way he could catch it. But he only threw for, but Caleb only threw for 131 yards. Swift, if you take away his one run, which was 56 yards, that was the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He was 17 carries for 73 yards, right? So the defense Washington defense overall did a decent job with the Bears. Jaden, on the other hand, was 21 for 38 for 226 yards. I think there were 4 drops. I know for 100% sure there was 3. I think there was a 4th drop where the guys should have caught it, including a touchdown. And then B-Rob and Eckler combined were 117 yards rushing, and then combined was 23 carries. Total offense, 481 yards. 481 yards, and you only scored 18 points.
Yeah. It was pretty obvious.
Yeah. So it was
really you take away the chunk of that, which was the Hail Mary, but yeah, it was
still over 400 yards because that was like a 65-yard pass. But even that drive was, I think, a 70-yard pass or something to that effect. So yeah, it was even before that final play, they were sitting at around 400 yards of offense, and at that point, only had 15 points to show for it. Is that right?
12, because final was 18.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So they would have had
12 points.
Yeah.
400 yards with 12 points to show for it.
But or was it 15? I don't know, man. After the touchdown, I don't remember what the score. I don't even remember what the final score was.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, so with that 481 yards, there's been a lot of talk on social media from a lot of Bears fans. So talking about Jayden Daniels, what he can't do, talked about our college style offense. People are gonna get enough of talking about our offense, which, oh, by the way, was the number 1 scoring offense in the league going into that game. And yet Cincinnati cornerback was running his mouth, Chicago Bears defensive guys running their mouth. And yet he put up 481 yards on you of offense. And prior to that game, the most amount of yards that the Chicago Bears defense had given up was, I think, 32 yards or something like that, or 320 yards. And Washington put up 408, almost 500 yards. And this was supposed to be one of the better defenses outside of Baltimore that Washington was going to face. And so, although we know there was a lot of hype surrounding the quarterbacks and the offenses, people was wondering how Washington was going to be against that defense. Right. Well, 480 yards was what the number was against that same defense, And so for Washington to be able to do that and still allow Chicago to be in the game, I understand that's somewhat of an indictment, but we have to remember this is still year 1 of our new coaching staff and things of that nature. But the game should not have been as close as it was. It should not have come down to a Hail Mary. We should have been able to put this game out of reach early on, probably by half, to be quite honest, by the halftime.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you go It wasn't until the second half of the third quarter. I think it was late in the third quarter when Swift got that
Yes.
touchdown.
Yes.
Up to that point, Washington was winning 12-0, I believe.
Yeah.
And if you're a Chicago fan, you didn't like what your team was doing, but you had to be thankful that you had a chance just because of the score, right? I mean, you had to be sitting there saying, "Man, if we could just get one play, and then we're back in the game." They ended up getting that one play. It was a shot in the arm, and they went from there. But yeah, Washington shot themselves in the foot between some untimely penalties and some drop passes. Uh, I know penalties are part of the game and you're going to have them, but you get in that red zone, you just cannot have penalties. You know, that
I
is the
agree.
no penalty zone.
I agree.
Um, and then, um, and then some drop passes. Um, and I know two of the drop passes for sure were in the red zone as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eckler was a drop pass, and so was uh, Ertz.
Well, I will say the touchdown that was not in the end zone with Ertz, everybody in the stadium, even the Chicago Bears fans around us, were like, that should have been a touchdown.
Right.
That was a no call, not a no call, but they changed that call or announced it as a I think play stands or something. I don't know, but it was a great challenge by Dan Quinn, and I feel like that still should have been a touchdown by Ertz. But
Yeah.
again, it was these little things, man, that kept allowing Chicago to hang around. And when they finally got their offense going, boy, it got going. And so, to your point, toward the end of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, it was clear that the momentum had shifted. And I was saying, can Joe Witt, get an answer to these guys because they got it rolling a little bit. And we know that obviously Chicago went with they scored their 2 touchdowns late in the game. And then we had the Hail Mary. And so a little funny stat for you here. I'm gonna see if I can read it here. Um, we know that Chicago scored their go-ahead touchdown with 23 seconds to go in the game,
Right.
right? And then Washington has the Hail Mary. And that's the first time in the history that both teams scored a go-ahead touchdown within 30 seconds remaining of an NFL game,
Wow.
right? So by them scoring with 23 to go, that was the go-ahead, and then Washington with the Hail Mary with the go-ahead, all within less than 30 seconds. The first time in the history of the league that two teams have done that. So we saw a little history there, man. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Definitely would seem rare. It doesn't seem like that would be the first time,
Yeah,
but yeah, it
yeah,
is what it is.
yeah. And a little bit of a debate between Ken and I. I don't remember the exact point in time in the game, but it was when Washington punted with the fourth and short. Um, Being there, I think it was fourth and inches. I don't think it was a full yard. And Dan Quinn elected to punt, which ultimately gave Chicago the ball. I think they drove down, and that may have been the fumble to the offensive lineman. But
Yeah.
but
At the
nonetheless,
time, it was roughly at the Washington 14-yard line
yeah.
ballpark.
And Ken felt that the punt was the right thing to do, and I was adamant that Dan Quinn should have gone for it on fourth because again the momentum was shifting. Was my point, and Chicago, although they had scored, I wanted to force them because if you get that 4th and 1 and we then get a first down and continue, even at a minimum, you get a field goal, you pretty much is going to put the game out of reach. But Ken's point was, and I'll let you do your own explanation of that, Ken, but I felt like we have an offense, not only a quarterback who can run, we have Jeremy Nichols, you got Brian Robinson. I mean, we have a plethora of guys that at this point, not 2 yards, not 4th and 2, wasn't even 4th and 1, it was 4th and inches. Quarterback sneak, whatever, I don't care. We should have been able at this point to have gotten inches to get you a first down. And I was adamant, and I know because of the Hail Mary that may not be a big topic of discussion simply because we still ultimately got the W. But 4th and inches, I believe Dan Quinn should have gone for it, and I stand by that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the point of view there. It's one of those things that you could really go either way. Because if you don't, and I'll help your argument here, if at that point there was 2 minutes, I'll say roughly 2.5 minutes in the game, and if they would have scored, you would have had potentially a minute and a half with a timeout to go try to score, as opposed to giving them the ball and they run down all the way down to 20 seconds.
No,
like
can
they
I
did.
can I correct you? Because I remember our conversation at the time.
No,
If we
I
had
didn't
gone,
say that at the time. I
no,
didn't say
no,
that, but in hindsight, I can see that logic that helps your argument.
no, but let me clear that.
Go ahead.
When we were having a conversation about going forward, there was still about 4 minutes to go. Because I made the argument to you at the game. You said, well, what if we don't get it? I said, if we don't get it, they're within the 20-yard line. Even if they score, we could still now get the ball with plenty of time to now go back and get a game-winning field goal. So there was still about 4 or 5 minutes left when we made the decision. Because what ultimately happened is we punted, they drove down, and then that was when they ultimately, I think, is when they fumbled. They had because they had a chance to go up twice. One was the fumble by the offensive lineman, and the other one was when they scored the actual touchdown. But if we had gone for it on 4th and not got it, and they got the ball in our territory and scored, there was still plenty enough time for us to get the ball and to go back the other way.
Yeah.
At that time on the
I
4th
didn't think
down
there was
decision.
quite that much time, but
Yeah.
but it was the same premise is if they would have scored, I mean, granted, they're starting out would have been starting out at roughly the
20,
15-yard
25
line,
yard.
right?
It was
So
something. Yeah.
you're not gonna again. This is the piling on your idea here is it's not going to take them 4 minutes. It's not going to wear down 4 minutes getting 15 yards, right?
Correct.
Even if they take 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, you still have a minute and 30 seconds and a timeout to go down and kick a field goal at least, if not a touchdown. So I 100% understood that logic. Our defense, up until right about then, they had started moving the ball some. I just had a feeling that our defense was going to make a play. We were going to, get that big sack, potentially get a turnover, a sack fumble type of issue. That we would dial something up, a blitz package or something that we hadn't shown them, right? Because they even did that to Jaden one time. All of a sudden, the guy blitzed. I think it was a corner that came in and blitzed, and Jaden didn't have a chance. He basically just
he nailed him.
dropped.
He nailed Jayden. He nailed Jayden on that play too.
Yeah. And they hadn't shown that the entire game. They waited until a key moment, and they did that. To their credit, to the defense's credit. I had a feeling that Joe Witt would dial something up different to give them a good look and and make a play.
But he did not. Even now, if the
No,
game
you're
is
right.
over, he did
Absolutely.
not.
Absolutely.
And but anyway, that was just a little bit of debate, and it's one of those things that happens during the game. And if they lose the game, it is a big topic of discussion. But since they won, everyone is got this euphoria about the outcome, and they're kind of the coaching staff is essentially off the hook for having to answer or question, being questioned about the decision to not go for it as opposed to punting the ball. But it was great, man. And so I guess at this point, can we talk about the play itself? So to set the scene here on this game, once the Chicago Bears had scored and had taken the lead and everything, you could I gotta imagine if you're watching on television, you could hear, because it wasn't until the third quarter when I realized just how many Bears fans were in the stadium. You could see them; there were quite a few.
Yeah.
But when they finally scored on that 61-yard touchdown run, it woke the Bear up.
Yeah.
Pun intended. It woke them Bear fans up, man. And then at that point, you hear all the "Let's Go Bears" chants and everything that was going on. And so when they finally went up and we got 20 seconds left, people began to leave the stadium. Bears fans were gone. Commanders fans were leaving. And the Bears fans that remained were very loud. They were chanting, "Let's go Bears, let's go Bears." And it was crazy. And, obviously we knew it was going to take a miracle, if you will, to win this game. And we didn't know it at the time, but the, 15-yard catch by Terry, where they pretty much just gave Terry free run up the field, and he runs out of bounds to stop the clock to get a little closer for what essentially became the Hail Mary. They throw the ball, and of course, at the game, we're not paying any attention to Tyreek Stevenson, who, if you've been anywhere close to social media or even to a television, you know that the Bears defender had his back turned to the offense, and he was too busy taunting Commander fans. And the ball is hiked, and Jayton is running around down there. And I think for a good 4 seconds, this kid's not even in the play. He's nowhere near the play. He finally turns around and realizes the play is gone. And by the time Jayton throws the ball, he runs over to essentially, I guess, to knock it down. But instead of knocking it down, he tips the ball, which ultimately led to the deflection and was caught by Noah Brown. And when I tell you that stadium was loud, it was loud. And what you saw on television with everyone running the field, the coaching staff, and anybody else who was official with the organization was on the field, it was just as quiet from the Bears fan. When I tell you mouths were on the floor, eyes were wide, stares, it was like, what the hell just happened?
It was a light switch. It was a light switch. And, have you ever accidentally, you back in the day, you had your stereo on, you didn't realize you had your volume maxed out, and you push the power and it just blares? That's exactly what happened when he caught that pass, because the stadium erupted, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I was telling somebody, since we've been home, that the celebration, it lasted in the stands.
Yes,
at least 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes, people didn't leave.
No,
Bears fans started walking
in shock
out.
and cheered and screamed and lost their voice.
Yes,
and it was mayhem that just kept on going.
Yes, and to your point, people didn't leave. We were still standing around, screaming, yelling, hollering. People on their phone, whether it was videoing or calling someone. Some Bears fans left. The ones that were still in shock just kind of stood there, stunned, didn't know what to do. And even when you got out of the stands and you're in the concourse area, it was still a celebration. People standing around, hooting and hollering and high-fiving.
High-fiving strangers. Everybody, if somebody had their hand up, you were giving them a high five.
Yeah. And then you get outside the stadium and they're still celebrating. And then again, going back to that mile walk to the Metro, people still celebrate. And it was, I'm telling you, man, it was crazy. It was one of those things where it will be talked about and people will be like, were you there? Or you can say, I was there. And just as much as for the people who can say, I was there and witnessed it, there's those group of folks that left early. So that's going to always be your memory of the game. I could have been there, but I left early. Because there were some fans in front of us, Chicago fans who thought they had won, and then there were some Commanders fans who thought they had lost, and they left early.
Yeah.
And their memory of it is, we left.
Yeah.
We left early.
Yeah.
So it was crazy, man. It was crazy. It was wild. We went to go eat afterwards, and people still riding high. And we saw some Bears fans.
Even the staff, right? The staff at the restaurant, they were walking around, giving us high fives and stopping at our table. They had Commanders gear on, and it was and then we got to the airport this morning, and there's still people around. People on our flight, people everywhere. Just you see a Commander fan, you smile and you're like, yeah.
Oh, that was crazy.
We know what we're experiencing right now.
Man, that was crazy. Yeah, I saw, or some people that was at the airport was at the game just as we were.
Yep.
And so people are still talking about it, man. We are right now the talk of the football world, all over television, ESPN, the NFL Network, and things of that nature. So it was wild, man. The miracle in Maryland is what it was.
Yeah.
And all I can say is I was there.
Uh,
I was there.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting. I think it'll be a challenge this week of turning that off for, as a player, you know you didn't play your best game, right? There's nobody there. There's nobody on the field that thought that they played the best game.
Correct.
And even when I'm talking about the yards that were there, again, Jaden was off a little bit on some of his passes. There were some drops on there. There were some penalties.
Some low passes.
What's that?
Some low passes by Jaden.
Yeah,
Some drop
that's just
balls by
some
the
passes that were off
receivers.
by
Yeah.
him. So there was still a lot of meat on the bone for us to get in that game that we didn't. But when you end the game like that and you're riding high, enjoy it. But I would imagine it's going to be difficult on Tuesday, Wednesday to kind of get recentered.
You're talking about
grounded.
you're talking about the meat on the bone. Our only touchdown was the Hail Mary.
Right.
We didn't, outside of that, we didn't score a single touchdown.
Right.
And so we're supposed to be better than that at this point. But I have all the confidence in the world that between Joe Witt on the defense side and Dan Quinn being head coaches, he's not going to let this be one of those things where, as we go into Sunday against the New York Giants, that their head is still on the game that happened last Sunday with the Hail Mary. I believe they're going to let this go, and probably by Wednesday when they get back to practice, it's going to be all right. That was then. We need to watch that. We're on the New York now, and I have every confidence because that was the things that we were concerned about at the Cincinnati Monday night. How would we go in Arizona?
Right.
And then would there be any lingering effects from the loss against Baltimore going into the next game against Carolina?
Right.
And yet in both of those instances, the team was able to compartmentalize that and basically get back and only focus on the game that was in front of them. So I have every confidence that in a few days they'll watch this and the focus will be back on the New York Giants because, again, although they're 6-2, we've only played one division game, and we're getting ready to start our stretch of division games. And they will tell you one win or one loss in a division game is like a game and a half. So they have to make sure that they're winning these division games. So I believe they'll get the focus back, man, on the New York Giants.
Yeah, I can only speak for myself. I would have to have whether it's a Joe Witt or position coach, I'd have to have somebody chew my ass. I'm gonna be out there skipping around and laughing and high-fiving still, and they'd be like, hey, Knucklehead Ken, get your shit together. Get your stuff together and
well, look, I'll tell you this.
Are you gonna get some pine time? There's somebody else ready to take your place.
Well, look, man, we got the coaches that are gonna do just that. I mean,
don't doubt it.
You ever listen to a Joe Witt presser? He's gonna tell you to get it together. And you look at Dan Quinn. I think Dan Quinn is a nice guy publicly, and he's probably a nice guy, but I think he's somewhat of a hard ass. I think behind the scenes, and I think for certain he will have those guys focused.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about it.
And I'm sure they could get me focused, but they're probably gonna have to yell at me one time.
Listen,
I'm be honest.
And there's probably a couple guys on the roster who they're gonna have to snatch them by the collar this week and be like, all right, let's
or other players, keeping it in line.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I would be I'd still, after a game like that, I'd feel like a young rookie. I'm gonna need a veteran to come set me straight. So
I think somebody will do that.
I think they would.
Well, man, we are back. What a crazy weekend we had. What a wild ride, and what an amazing event that we went to, man. I'm just glad to say we were there, buddy.
Absolutely. We're gonna follow up here in another day or so, and day or two, and do a pregame of the New York Giants and see what we can do to go from 6-2. I'll say it again, 6-2, NFC leading Washington Commanders to 7-2. And you get that 7-2. The Vegas over and under was 6.5. So you win next week, and if you bet the over, you're basically barely halfway through the season and you already won.
Let's
You
get
already
it.
won that bet.
Let's get it.
Let's get it. Until next time, peace out, knuckleheads.
Peace out, y'all.